budget. We were going to also get a briefing today by, unfortunately, Public Works had asked, because of the fact that they have to brief the portfolio committee at the very same time as this meeting are taking place now. They've got to brief the portfolio committee on their audit action plans. So, and they can't split their delegations. So they've written to the secretariat of our committee and requested that this portion of their presentation be postponed. And we have applied to the House Chair of Committees to receive that briefing by the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure on Thursday afternoon, the 7th of May. So if you can just make a note in your diaries, honorable members, from 2 o'clock till 5 o'clock Thursday afternoon, the 7th of May, we'll do the briefing on the APP and budget of the Department of Public Works. With that, Mr. Lini, are there any apologies?
Good morning, Chair. Um,
Chief Executive.
Good morning, honorable members. My name is Sharifa Chenya, Chief Audit Executive. I'm unable to project my camera. Apologies.
We can see you.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Figile. Ms. Figile Naombe.
Morning, Chair. Morning, honorable members. My name is Figile Nangombe from the Office of the DG. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moekete Sekudo. Is Moekete in? I see the name. Okay, let's pass. Herman Marke. Chairperson, we've got Mr. Herman Marke and Mr. Sekudo, who for some reason, I don't know why they're not talking. But that is the Ramukosi Jenny from SOC. Mr. Jenny Ramukosi.
Good morning, DG. I'm using a camera. Ramkosi from SOK Gap.
Yeah, you're using a camera, but you're not on the camera. So that's fine, Mr. Malapadi.
Morning, DG, honorable members. Mpuga Malapani from Rose Branch.
Okay. Chairperson, that is the department of the Department of Transport. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Acting DG. And you are all very welcome in this meeting. Honorable members, DG, Acting DG Mukunyama and this meeting, we confirm that we realize as a committee that this engagement is not just a procedural exercise. It is a critical moment in our credible, measurable outcomes that would improve the lived reality of all South Africans out there. We've looked at the documentation that we received, and I think the passport and identify as the economic growth and social development capacity, governance discipline, and delivery capability. We as a committee note the key priorities, including road fatalities. But also, we've got to note, honourable members, that these are not new ambitions. We've seen these ambitions before in previous APPs, and I think as a committee we need to make sure that we question what will be done differently to achieve these ambitions from now on. The situation analysis in the APP is very candid. It acknowledges declining rail infrastructure, port inefficiencies, rising logistic costs, and a heavy over-reliance on road transport. And all of these things are constraining economic growth and job creation. I think equally concerning is that these inefficiencies are estimated to cost the economy billions and contribute significantly to road fatalities and infrastructure deterioration. I think we need to also confront the reality of state-owned entities within the broader transport ecosystems. For example, failures at South African Airways remain a stark example of what happens when governance collapses, oversight weakens, and accountability is delayed. Billions were lost, capacity was destroyed, and public trust eroded, all while the state was forced to intervene repeatedly with the South African Airways. We also note that over 94% of the department's budget is transferred to entities, provinces, and municipalities. This raises a fundamental oversight question. How effective is the department in exercising control, coordination, and accountability over these implementing agents? So as a committee, I think we need to test alignment, interrogate performance indicators, and ensure that public funds are not only spent, but that it's spent effectively, and that is the key. So today we expect clarity on delivery, honesty on constraints, and accountability on past performance. So ultimately, as we always say in this committee, when we move people and goods, we move money, and therefore we move the economy. But when the system fails, the entire country pays the price. So with those introductory remarks, which I hope was audible this time around, I'd like to invite the department to take the committee through the presentation. It's over to you. Thank you very much, Acting DDG.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and good morning to the honorable members, the colleagues from the department and Parliament. Chair, you were very audible this time around, and the message is very clear. Chairperson, and your concerns are noted. Chair,
So I'm just trying to go to slideshow.
There we
Yes,
go. It's on. Thank you very much.
So I'll try and summarize the presentation as indicated, but in essence, it does then touch on the process we followed, which I think is quite important. Touches on the 5 priorities that as a department we're still committed to pursue and deliver on. It also then includes the impact statement, which in essence is the drive and a compass that we are then using to prioritize also our interventions. Situational analysis as well was conducted to inform what we can and cannot do or what we should prioritize. And then we'll get straight into then the APP targets, and then also touch on the targets from the driving license card count, and then hand over to the CFO. As we know, we are expected to produce an APP which contributes to the achievement of our strat plan for this period. We have since then gone through that process as prescribed by the framework from DPME. We produced the first draft, which we submitted in October. And in that draft, we had taken into account the requirement which speaks to the alignment that we needed to do in relation to the MTDP, as well as ensuring that there is that alignment in terms of our targets and direct line of sight for the targets that have then since been targeted by our entities, provinces and municipalities. And of course, this takes into account the distinction of roles and responsibilities, looking at the span of control when it comes to target setting. As for the department, we are responsible for policy, legislation, and strategies. However, the service delivery and the implementation of our strategies and interventions actually lies within our entities and provinces, which is why then you'll find that most of the service delivery targets are then articulated in the entities' APPs, as well as the DOT provincial departments. What we have then since done is also then to make sure that we have then the set standardized indicators where we ensure that the provincial departments again include the targets that have been committed by national performance on a quarterly basis. Now, this is also then indicated in our consolidated indicators on a quarterly basis. We followed through that process where we then had our sector-wide strategic planning session in January, where again we included our provincial departments and entities, as well as SALGA. And this again was just to make sure that we get input from all the stakeholders and we don't have a prescriptive APP where we, in essence, dictating to entities and provinces what they should target. However, they serve also as a sounding board, and we do have that collaborative agreement in terms of what do we then prioritize in this year. We submitted the draft APP to AG for the proactive review, just so that we don't get audit issues when it comes to reporting. We also considered the SONA address that was conducted in February, just to make sure again that what we're working on as a department this year is actually also contributing to the pronouncements made in the SONA speech. We then obviously went through the process of responding to feedback that we received from DPME from the first APP that we had since submitted to them. These are the priorities. I'm not going to go through them. We've had them. They are in our strategic plan, but in essence, they're talking to your freight rail, but also maritime targets, and also looking at your passenger rail numbers that, again, still have not changed. But also, we're also working towards your air freight, looking at your, as well as your passenger trips across the AXA network, and also then the road fatalities that we still committed to curb. This, in essence, is the impact statement where we're looking at, okay, in our interventions, will they then culminate to a well-developed and efficient transport system? And we believe that obviously infrastructure investment will play a big part, but also looking at your policy reform and technological advancements. And so that's where we actually focused when it came to our annual targets. As indicated, we went through the situation analysis. The chair touched on these, so I'm not going to go through those, but it was just in essence just to make sure that we set realistic targets, but also we set targets that are responsive to the challenges that the country is facing and what the needs are in terms of transport. We also took into account the concurrent functions. I touched on this earlier on. And so those are the parameters that we had or considered when we were developing our APP. Strategic overview has not changed, so those remain the same. These are the programs, Chair, that we have in the department that then have defined targets which culminate overall into the department's ability to deliver on its mandate and priorities for this year. When we get into the program one, which is our administration, we have targets that speaks to governance, and that obviously speaks to our commitment to responding to all the parliamentary questions received. We are going to make sure that we develop our APP and have it tabled by March. Similarly, develop our annual report for the performance of last year. In fact, we have started that process. We're also dealing with issues of fraud and corruption. We continue to commit to making sure that we investigate all reported cases within 30 days of reporting. We're working also extensively on making sure that we have a skilled and capable workforce. So we have interventions that are designed to build capacity within the department, but also for the sector. So we have targeted to make sure that at least 35% of our staff will then be trained in line with the workplace skills plan for the department. But we're also then providing financial assistance for unemployed persons who wish to pursue transport-related qualifications. So we're targeting to provide financial assistance to 200 students. And we're also then focusing on unemployed youth, where we're also then targeting support for 75 unemployed youth. In terms of employment equity and the drive towards women representation at SMS level, we are, although we've had challenges, still committed to the 50% representation of women at SMS. And we're also then working on our structure as a department. We're going through that review. We are working on the micro-organizational structure, which is the lower level. We have semi-finalized the macro structure. So we are going to proceed with that process so that we do have a fit-for-purpose organizational structure. We do have work that's speaking to your IT, where we're looking to then ensure that we implement or fully implement our enterprise architecture, digital transformation initiatives, as well as cybersecurity initiatives. In terms of finance, we are committed to again, getting an unqualified audit opinion this year, which then means we're looking to ensure that we implement all the action plans that have been developed to respond to the audit findings that may have been raised in the previous audit. To support SMMEs, we are committed again to ensure that we pay all valid invoices within 30 days and also then implement your PPPFA. In terms of integrated transport planning, we are doing some work for climate change. We are continuing with the work for the revised green transport strategy, where we're looking to have it submitted for approval for public consultation this year and have it then approved by Cabinet next year. The work of the Transport Economic Regulator, that continues. We are going to conclude the inception of the transitioning of the ports regulator staff into the TER. We're also doing some work on impact analysis of transport on the economy. So we're working on developing a model this year. Similarly, for regional integration, we are going to be doing a study on market access for cross-border road transport services along the north-south corridor. In terms of rail, We were going to continue with the legislation that we are working on, which speaks to then the National Rail Bill. We're looking to submit that to NEDLAC for consultation and have it submitted to Parliament by next year. We will continue on in terms of rail safety, developing the railway safety regulations this year and have those implemented in the outer year. We're also going to be doing some work on infrastructure investment in rail, which is quite critical. We've got 2 interventions there speaking to your triple Ps in ports and rail corridors. This year, we're looking to develop 2 requests for proposals for rail and ports developed, and we'd like to see the implementation of those projects starting next year. We also then working on the National Rail Master Plan. It was on the news yesterday. We're looking to have that Rail Master Plan approved for submission to Cabinet this year. For road transport, we've got a few interventions in a plan for this year. We are going to continue to respond to the issue of road fatalities, where we would want to have the reviewed road safety strategy submitted to Cabinet this year for approval. We're also going to continue with the work of extending the validity period of our driving license cards. We'd want to have the proposed validity period approved for submission to Cabinet this year and have it go to Parliament next year. The work on the bills will also continue this year for the CPRTA, RTR, RTMC, and SANRAL. We'd want to have the bills gazetted for public comments this year, and the same applies for the RABS bill. In terms of then the DLTCs and the vehicle testing stations, we will then continue with the compliance inspections just to make sure that we improve services rendered there. We have targeted those numbers. Similarly, for infrastructure investment at national level as well as provincial level, we will continue doing our oversight inspections just to make sure that what is being reported as infrastructure having been done or roads having been built or maintained, in fact, those have been done, and also look at the quality of the work that has been done. And then lastly, in terms of legislation, we're working on the road policy for South Africa. We're looking to have that submitted to Cabinet this year. In terms of civil aviation, we also have just a few targets there. The first one speaks to the search and rescue asset strategy that we're working on as a department. We're looking to have that approved for submission to Cabinet this year, with public consultations taking place from next year and the subsequent approval thereof. We're also going to be working on improving efficiencies when it comes to foreign operator permits. Minister is quite passionate about this one. We've committed to have at least 80% of the permit applications processed within 14 days. And of course, the number increases from next year going forward. In terms of creating an enabling environment, we are continuing with our work on the National Aviation Policy. We'd want to have that the draft policy submitted to Cabinet for approval for consultation this year. We're also working on, in terms of the infrastructure investment, on the airports development plan. That as well, we're looking to have that submitted to NEDLAC for consultations with plans for submission to Cabinet next year. Chair, we also have a target that speaks to a number of key flights to key destinations, increase to grow the tourism sector. This is a target actually sponsored by the Department of Tourism. And of course, as a department, we've then had to indicate what are we going to do to contribute to meeting this target. We have since then committed to review 5 air service arrangements with identified key trade and tourism markets so that we can see where we can actually increase the flights. And then we're also working on the air freight strategy, which we would like to have that submitted to Cabinet for approval this year. When it comes to maritime, we're working on the coastal shipping agreement. between ourselves and 3 SADC countries. This year, we're looking to have a signed amendment to the Chapter 8 of the SADC Protocol on Transport in relation to coastal shipping agreement. We're also working on the legislation or the bill for the ships and ballast water management and sediments, where we'd want to have that bill then approved for submission to Cabinet this year. For infrastructure and maritime, we're working on the National Ports Master Plan framework and would like to have that approved by the Minister this year as well. In terms of governance, we are working on responding or addressing IMSA's audit findings. This year, we're targeting 30%. We're breaking this down, looking at the scope of the work that needs to be done for each of the findings. We're breaking those down in terms of 30%, and 40% in the outer year. We're also doing some work on decarbonization in maritime, where we've then drafted, we've targeted to have a draft national action plan on maritime decarbonization developed this year. And then to improve safety in the fishing vessels, we are committed to doing at least 6 oversight compliance inspections of fishing vessels to ensure safety compliance in the shipping vessels. When we go to public transport, to improve transport safety and security, we are still committed to 100% scrapping of submitted and qualifying all taxi vehicles to curb GBV in the transports, in public transport or in the taxi industry. We are going to continue with the exercise of monitoring and supporting the industry in the implementation of the GBV initiatives. When it comes to the IPTNs, we are going to continue providing support and assistance to those 11 cities that are implementing the IPTNs, also even in the winding down process. Chair, we also have then the target speaking to universal access. This is another sponsored target coming from the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability. Their interest is in ensuring access of public transport to persons with disabilities. And of course, we then had to indicate what would the department be doing to contribute to this target. So what we would be doing this year is then conducting a travel survey to establish to what extent is public transport accessible to persons with disabilities. The last one, Chair, on public transport is then the distribution of 10,000 bicycles across all provinces in the country. The last program, Chair, is then the SOC governance and assurance. We've got 3 targets there. The first one is speaking to the oversight function that we play over our entity. So we will then be reviewing their quarterly reports on a quarterly basis of all the entities to analyze their actual performance in relation to what they've targeted, but also look at their state of health and also check the filling of vacancies of the executive, as well as obviously our boards. We're also going to be going through the exercise of evaluating our boards. So this year we're targeting to develop a framework which will then be used to evaluate our board's performance. And then lastly, we are committed to ensuring that our boards board vacancies are always filled. So realistically, we're targeting 90% this year. And of course, we want to increase the percentage next year. Chair, this then takes us to DLCA. I will try and be brief there. They are implementing their programs. They're meeting their mandate through these 4 programs. And in terms of administration, they are going to continue with the work of filling the vacancies there and also making sure that the employees, at least 60% of the employees are trained. In terms of governance and finance, they are targeting an unqualified audit opinion, which means then 100% implementation of the action plans to address audit findings. In terms of revenue collection, they are committing to collect at least 85% of outstanding debt. And also then to support SMMEs, they also then committing to ensure that all valid invoices are paid within 30 days. They're also then going to develop the APP as required and submit and table by March. And this is an important section in terms of production for the program 2. There is that commitment to produce the driving license cards within an average of 21 working days. Chair, this is taking into account the constraints that they have in terms of the card machine. They're also then committing to produce 2.6 million cards annually. In terms of efficiency, they would want to have at least 95% of the produced cards delivered within 7 working days. In terms of technology, they are committing to an enrollment, 95% enrollment system uptime, and also to make sure that on a quarterly basis, all quarterly backups rather are completed, and also then to make sure that all identified security vulnerabilities are resolved within 5 working days of reporting. They've also then committed in terms of service delivery to ensure that all incidents reported at DLTCs are attended to within 5 working days. So they're targeting at least 97%. When it comes to maintenance, they're also targeting 95% maintenance of enrollment equipment, just to make sure that we don't compromise on service delivery. They will continue with their stakeholder engagement. And then lastly, when it comes to their budget, the expected revenue for this year is 322 million, with an expected expenses of 311 million, with an expected surplus of 10 million. And then lastly, Chair, it's just the vacancies. I think what is important there is that for those vacancies that are there, the department has made provisions. There are officials that have been seconded to DLCA to perform those functions so that the work continues. Thank you, Chair. I will now hand over to the CFO.
Thank you. Please continue.
Thank you. And I must start with greeting the honorable members and the colleagues on the platform. As presented by my colleague, is the APP for the department for 26-27. Now the question is, how is it funded in order to enable the department to meet those particular targets? So in terms of my presentation, I'll touch on the E&E, the national expenditure, the estimate of national expenditure per program, and also per economic classification. I'll also touch quickly on the goods and services, and of course on transfers, as most of the honorable members are from provinces, and they can see how the provinces, their particular provinces, are being funded to perform the particular APP in those particular provinces. The next slide, please. Chairperson and members. Next slide. Slide 5.2. Yes, thank you very much. Honorable members, you can see that the budget for the department, what I want to highlight is that the department is implementing most of the project via the public entities as well as the provinces. And then the main aim for the entities and the provinces is maintaining, rehabilitating, and upgrading and expanding the rail infrastructure, the roads infrastructure, as well as the ports infrastructure. And this particular action are expected to result in improved mobility and access for social and economic activities. Our budget in terms of the MTF period we are expected to receive 313.5 billion, with the expenditure increasing at an average of 1.6% from an allocation of 107 billion in the year 25-26 and increasing to 112 billion in the year 28-29. I also want us to note that the transfers to public entities as well as provinces is estimated at 94.4%, which amounts to 296 billion over the MTF period, and increasing at an annual rate of 2.4% from 98.4 billion in the year 25-26 to 105 billion in the year 28-29. Then if we go to the next slide, Honorable Chair and members, you will see how the department is funding the APP. If you look particularly at the year under review, which is 26-27, the total allocation there is 102 billion. And the highest allocation goes to the road branch with 52 billion. And then it is followed by the rail branch at 31 billion. And then the third allocation in terms of amount goes to the public transport at 14.7 billion. And I also want to just members to know that in the year 25-26, we received a special allocation of 15.1 billion, and this increased our baseline. And the funding was allocation for the passenger rail agency for meeting the funding shortfall in terms of the rolling stock fleet renewal program. And then also a special allocation for the North Corridor reinstatement project to rehabilitate and restore the Transnet freight rail. And the third allocation went to iron ore corridor, rebuilding rail infrastructure and upgrading the track section and removing operational bottlenecks. And then the fourth allocation was going to the Durban Container Terminal, bed for the 203-205 reconstruction and deepening and lengthening. The next slide, Chairperson and members, Honorable Chair and members, is now the allocation in terms of economic classification. There, members can see that our allocation for compensation of employees is 664 million, and the goods and services will receive 1.3 billion, and the transfers and subsidies, as indicated in the previous slide, is 96.6 billion. Then there's payment for capital asset of 17 million, and then for financial asset is 3.3 billion. And the total budget is 102 billion. And that's how it is allocated, members. Next slide. In terms of compensation of employee, a total for the MTF period is 2 billion, which has been allocated for compensation. And this item is increasing at 3.8 billion from 640 million in 25-26 to, to 716 million in the outer year of 28-29. The goods and services on the 3-year allocation is 4.2 billion, and the main allocation goes to some of these operational costs associated with recapitalization of taxis, the watchkeeping services, the oil pollution prevention, the operationalization of the transport economic regulator, and the reduction of the greenhouse gases emission, and implementing and monitoring a transport sector just transition, and the private sector participation for advisory unit, and the provision of technical and interventionalist support for provincial road authorities. In terms of transfers and subsidies, as indicated, the estimated 94.4% is allocated to transfers and subsidies amounting to 296 billion. And then if you look at the payment of asset, the payment of financial asset in the medium term is 16.8 billion. This has been allocated under payment of financial asset. And of this, 422 million is for the debt redemption towards the Gauteng Freeway Improvement Project. Next slide. This slide, Honorable Chair and members, give us a breakdown of our goods and services on some of the cost drivers, what we call the cost drivers for the department. We just listed them there for the members to see. The total allocation of our cost drivers is 780 million in the current financial year. Then we go to the next slide quickly. This slide, just a pie graph. I will not go deep into it. It just indicates in terms of the transfers and subsidies, which one is receiving the largest amount. At 33% is our Sanral, then followed by PRASA at 39%, and then followed by the road maintenance grant, which goes to all the 9 provinces. The next slide, Chairperson, is the details of the transfers and subsidies. I will not go to each of them, and you can see in terms of Sanral, again, how much is going to receive, as well as PRASA, which is our main entities that they receive a lot of funding for their operations. The next slide is continuing with details of other transfers. I'll not go to read all of them. And then the next slide is just a pie graph, which indicate comparative figures. Then the next slide is talking to the road transport as an allocation, how much the department will be using for the road transport in general, starting first of all with the Sanral allocation of 99.9 billion over the MTF period. Of this amount, 63.9 billion go for the non-toll network. And then the second item is the 2.4 billion, which goes to the Gauteng Freeway Improvement Project. And the 4 billion goes to the N2 Wild Coast Project. The third item is the Moloto Road at 3.3 billion. And lastly, 25.9 billion go for the operational expenditure for Sanral. In the road branch, we know that we have got the road maintenance grant, PRMG. In short, this grant is set to receive an allocation of 54.2 billion over the MTF. There are 2 components, which is the maintenance and the refurbishment of the components are geared towards preserving and upgrading the provincial road network and related assets. And in paragraph B, it just indicates the targets that the PRMG will be doing in this particular year. Then next slide. You're right, 62. This slide, Honorable Chair and members, shows you the breakdown of the Sanral allocation so that members can see what Sanral will be doing for the operations in the current year is 8.3 billion. And then for the Gauteng improvement is 787. And then for the single ticketing system, the allocation there is 31 million. On the capital allocation, you can see for the non-toll allocation, as well as the Moloto Road upgrade, and then the KwaZulu-Natal flood damage, as well as the road agency for the N2 Wild Coast improvement. Next slide, is just a graphical comparison on the public transport. And in the public transport analysis, you'll see that we have got PRASA there, because PRASA is providing public transport, and their allocation is as follows: 19.6 billion is allocated for the renewal of the rolling stock, and 31.7 billion over for signaling, so that the trains can move in their allocated destination. And then other capital allocated 12.8 billion, and then lastly 31.5 billion for their operational expenditure. In public transport, we have got also an allocation for the public transport operation grant, which the grant is for subsidies for road-based public transport services provided by Provincial Department of Transport, and it's expected to increase to 8.1 billion, from 8.1 billion to 9 billion in the outer year of 28-29. Then we also have public transport network grant, where unfortunately, in terms of the National Treasury Targeted and Responsible Saving Initiative, identify a growing mismatch between the vision and the implementation of this network grant, which began more than 15 years ago after the public transport strategy paper, Instruction to Transform South African Fragmented Public Transport. The grant has consistently underspent and experienced delay in implementation, leading to the announcement by the Minister of Finance in the 2025 medium-term budget policy statement that it must be rounded up. Then the next allocation is in the medium term is for the taxi scrapping, as well as the taxi empowerment project. Then if we go to the rail branch, slide 64, go backward just a little bit. Yes, thank you very much. And this is the 64. Yeah, we are done with 64. Go to 65. I'll just focus a bit on their capital allocation, where you can see what is allocated for the capital expenditure, as well as the rolling stock fleet and passenger PRASA for signaling of the rail tracks. Then if we go to slide 66, members will see the allocation for each provinces. I'll not go to each of them. The total allocation for all the provinces amount to 17.9 billion. Then the next slide shows us the public transport operation grant at the total allocation of 8.4 billion. Then the next slide is talking to the public transport network grant with a total of 5.7 billion. And those are the cities that are currently participating in the operation grant. Thank you, Chairperson. Back to the acting DG.
Chairperson, that is our presentation, Chair. Just in seconds, it included the DLC as it is the entity within the department on financials, but it's because it is not reported anywhere separately like the other entities that have got enabling legislation. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. We are ready for the questions.
Thank you, Acting DG. We appreciate the presentation, and honorable members, let's go straight into the questions to save time. Let's take the hands. I see the hand of Honorable Skierkogel. Honorable Nzimande, Honorable Kaunda. Okay, let's start. I'm sure there'll be more hands as we go along. Let's start, Honorable Skierkogel.
All right. Thank you, Chairperson. I will try to be brief. I'm going to program 1. Given the objective to spend 50% of the procurement on women-owned businesses, 30% on youth-based, and 7 on business owned by persons with disabilities, how many contracts and jobs have actually gone to small enterprises in township, rural areas, and what mechanisms are in place to monitor this? Then also on this, the department conducts skills development programs in partnership with university and TVET colleges. How is the return on investment measured beyond counting the number of staff trained? And have graduates been absorbed into the department or possibly transport entities, and how many jobs have been created through these programs? Then if I go to program 2, Chairperson, the APPs mention developing a plan to analyze the impact of transport on the economy. So how will this module measure job creation and small business growth, and will the findings be published so that we can hold them public accountable? Then if we go to program 3, the Minister's RFI invites private parties to lease both new EMU trains and older yellow fleet. So are there any plans to refurbish the yellow trains to use on rural commuter lines, or to sell or lease even to other South African operators as suggested by the PRASA's overall program? And how will this support connectivity in rural areas to stimulate economies? And then, Chairperson, my last question is, there's some provincial departments that have procured yellow fleet for heavy equipment to fix rural roads and potholes. So will the national department consider a similar program across provinces? If I'm not correct, it was in KwaZulu-Natal specifically, possibly to leverage PRASA's older yellow fleet for commuter rail services or maintenance, and how will such initiatives be used to create job employment in the rural areas? And for that, Chairperson, actually, that's what I have, because I did a nice comparison between the 3 different APPs, and there is progress going on, and it's just some follow technical. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Skierkogel. Honorable Nzimande, let's take your questions as well, please.
No, thanks, Chair. The first question that I have is based on the issue of debt equity, or you call it bailouts, that occurred. Why that has not been the consequences of it? Why has it not been dealt with in the new plan, in particular on the rehabilitation and maintenance of provincial roads? And the next one relates to discontinuous, which may not necessarily be viewed as a problem from the department, but the heavy funding surely to the public entities is continuously compromising the issue of dealing with the rural roads and the integrated transport planning. What is it that is put in these plans to be a safe valve? But the next one relates to just a principle and cut across, Chair. The principle, it's seek to ask whether such plans really are just presented to us as an issue of compliance, or they are well thought of. You can't, year in and year out, continue to make mistakes. I will take just few examples in the plans, and I will want them to respond to it. We have raised it before, we are still raising it. The issue of issuance of driver's cards cannot lead to the improved safety. So it can never be a measurable outcome for safety. It's not only that one. You have a one that also deals with the issue of the outcome which they are talking about, improved safety, but they are mirroring it again on the submitted qualifying old taxes scrapped as an output. That can never be a measurable outcome for improved transport safety. This cut across in all of their outcomes, and when you read against such with their outputs and indicators, you can definitely see that this has nothing to do with the transformative agenda or developmental agenda. It does not even address the really ultimate goal, because the issue here is that it's where you want to be as an outcome. But once you have done that submitting, so what? Then it tells you the outcome and the outputs are incorrectly couched. So I want them really to tell us really what is it that makes it difficult for them to couch the targets or the outcomes of these plans to respond to a developmental agenda of the country. The last part, it deals with the poverty alleviation and social cohesion. I haven't seen, maybe they will address us in the plans. How do they intend to address the affordability of public transport, particularly for low income and those living in rural areas? West, under the kind of financial situation and the petrol and diesel increases that is ongoing, that is affecting our people and the inflation at large. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think let's take the responses to those two sets of questions from the department.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The first set of questions centered around jobs, really, and what impact will this our interventions have on jobs, and how many? Chair, and probably it also ties up with the second set of questions from Honorable Nzimande. Chairperson, our APP talks to what we do as the National Department of Transport. For the targets to be smart and really be achievable, we indicate what we are going to do as a department vis-a-vis what has to be done by those who receive our money, be they be entities and or provinces. So it is very difficult to say that we are and we will be going to patch potholes, for an example. I'm giving just an extreme. We don't do it as the National Department of Transport, but we monitor those that are going to do it. And that is why our targets are restricted to reporting on what the others are doing without us taking ownership of those projects. Chair, if we were to here and now say that as the National Department we will be patching potholes, it will be a misnomer. It will not be an incorrect account of what we necessarily do. So that is why our targets are more outcomes based, but the impact gets felt by those who receive the us and then consolidate the number of jobs across and submit it in writing, Chairperson. So I just wanted to indicate that it is reported information. So the primary source and the primary responsibility, for example, will lie with PRASA, for example, and or provinces in terms of implementing the PRMG. The slight difference will be the impact that we have with universities. Again, as this is the forward-looking, it's not necessarily reports on what we have done. We can provide you what are the outcomes coming out of universities and probably give a feel of whether they have impact. Chair, when you offer bursaries, when you give grants to universities and then they receive students, we do not necessarily say that those students, all of them will be absorbed by the state. But we have data indicating where those people, where those investments have ended up in, be they in the private sector and so on. So we shall also then give you per university the students that we are sponsoring and probably the field that they are pursuing in those universities. Chair, the work of the TER is government work and therefore will then be readily available. The issue on the impact on the economy by the transport sector, those results we have been doing them and releasing them publicly as a department. But now this work will be done by the TER, and then the report around that will be made available. So this is something we're still going to do. But also the TER will be also doing the market inquiry. So there will also be an indication of the split in terms of the subsectors. How are they therefore contributing to the economy? Chair, the PRASA program, while they are introducing the new fleet, there is also a work that is being done on the renewal of the fleet that can still be used. The intention is that in your big centers and the regions of PRASA for commuter rail, whether it is in small or big cities, we will be introducing the blue trains. But as we are winding down the issues of the yellow fleet, those again will be accounted for. So I just wanted to indicate that in the rural areas where there is commuter line, rural areas where there is commuter line, we will still be soldiering on with the yellow fleet to an extent. But you should know that the challenges but also the challenges related to Shosholo-Zamel, which is long distance rail. And PRASA has got plans to revitalize some of those rail. And I'm sure PRASA, should they be called to come and account, they'll give you the actual areas where they are intervening. We have recovered close to 38, almost 38 of the 40 corridors that we have targeted. But all of those are mainly in the urban areas where there was commuter rail and it suffered vandalism, as we all know. And those are the lines that we are recovering. And those are the lines where we are introducing the new trains. It's not so much so in the rural areas, but mainly in urban areas. And then there was an issue around the bailout and the consequences. The PRMG is not a bailout, it's a grant. What the provinces do at the beginning of each financial year, they fill what we call B form, which are the projects that they submit to National Department in terms of how many roads will be rehabilitated, maintained, in terms of kilometers length, and then potholes in terms of square kilometers. And those numbers and the figures are there in the presentation. For example, the over 2 million square kilometers that will be patched of potholes. So it is not the a bailout, obviously. It is a grant. To remove the old, unsafe, and unroadworthy taxes with what we call TRP compliant taxes. Now, Chair, removal of unsafe, what we call moving coffins from the roads, and replacing them with newer vehicles. If it is not a road safety aspect, I don't know what it is. So the main objective is not necessarily to enrich the taxi operators by removing their vehicles and providing them an opportunity to acquire new vehicles. But the overall and ultimate objective is to ensure that our roads are safe. And therefore, fits very well into the object of road safety and having taxis that are safe for our people. Chair. Now, the issue, again, as an example, it was indicated, how will the affordability of public transport be achieved with these interventions that we are making? Chair, again, I'm going to take an example. PTOC, Public Transport Operations Grant. The money we give in provinces to provide subsidies for road-based public transport. And for now, it is still buses, Chairperson. Now, when we provide subsidy, is the state intervening onto the total cost of transporting a passenger, for example? And if we give you a portion, we are not necessarily subsidizing the operators for them to stay on the road, but we are subsidizing the commuter so that the price of public transport is reasonable. We acknowledge that we are not there yet, but it is important to note that that is the function of a subsidy. We are making public transport affordable. Without the subsidy, it would be much more expensive for the commuter. And that is how you need to juxtapose the little bit that we put into the system vis-a-vis what the commuter will be able to pay at the fare box. We are not covering the total cost. We are covering a portion of the cost in the form of the subsidy, and the rest will have to be realized through the fare box. I think I've tried to deal with them. If there are follow-ups, we'll be happy to also provide more clarity, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think let's try and see if we can get another round of follow-ups after the first round of questions. Thanks for that, DG. Let's go to Honorable Kaunda.
Chair, you didn't note. Did you note me?
Honorable Treza, I'll take you. Your hand was last
Okay.
up, so I'll take you after Honorable Peter.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine, Chair.
Yeah, maybe Chair is because he's not wearing red something on his photo. That's why we couldn't recognize him. So let me proceed, Chair. Thank you very much.
I was gonna say he's looking good today, but let me keep quiet.
Thank you very much, Chair. And let me welcome the presentation by the department and commend the department of its performance. Chair, my first question will be on the public transport. The Durban IPTN program, which we as this committee have raised a concern that there is too much resources invested, but there is no value for money since the infrastructure is there and the operation is not there. So what is the resolve of the department and eThekwini to try and bring this into operation, the Go Durban? Because there must be value for money in each and everything that we do. Then the second one, Chair, is on the e-hailing on public transport. How far are the regulations being implemented? Because you still find some pockets of conflicts, especially in provinces like Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, where the taxi industry is fighting against the e-hailing operators. Because you'll recall that when this was introduced, especially Uber, they committed that they are not going to be collecting cash. They'll only use debit order system. Now, the taxi industry have raised very sharply that the migration of Uber and other e-hailing to collect cash is also dealing with their own customer base as the taxi industry. Then the third one, Chair, contractor development on the ESDs. How are we ensuring as a department that in the monies that we distribute to provinces, indeed, Section 217 of the Constitution does fund expression, especially in ensuring that our committees do not only benefit as general laborers, and also the development and support of social enterprises, which include even the poor, rather than Olis Kaunda PTY Ltd, which comes in the area and take that money and leave without leaving anything behind. So how are we ensuring that the ESD is funding and contract development is funding expression? And how can the national framework ensures that in each and every project, which is more than at least 3 million, 5 million, there is a compulsory transfer of skills. That a young person, a graduate from the university, get paired with the project manager to run that project, so that in the near future, that young person can also be able to stand alone in running big projects. How do you ensure that kilometers? We know that kilometers varies from each terrain of the road and whether there is a structure that you are going to be constructing in that road. But how do we ensure that there's no abuse? You can't have a kilometer costing 10 million, even in whatever terrain. Really, it's not possible. So how do you ensure as a department that with the funds of the public that we issue, whether in road construction, in road rehabilitation, in road maintenance, that you ensure that there is no abuse of such? Chair, the concessions on Sandra, what is their lifespan? And what is the plan of the department to transfer the skills so that when the time comes for the department to take over, we are certain that we'll be able to run it effectively? Vulnerable groups are our priority. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Kaunda. I think let's take Honorable Peter as well, then we will take responses to those two sets. Honorable Peter.
Honorable Chair, I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chair. Chair, my question is just for clarity. Mine first is to check the question that we're imposing to this department. Is it a new question for them as for a long period of time of serving in the department? Because administration, after administration, they go and come. That the question that we as a select committee, is it a new question to them? Or some of them are new, or some of them are the old question? Now, my second question is, how do they strike the balance between the road fatalities and the road accident fund backlog? Because there's a lot of backlog from the road accident fund. There's a lot of accidents on the road. How do they strike the balance? Why it's so huge backlog? Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much, DG. Let's take those two sets of questions. There's quite a few there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and thanks to the honorable members for the questions. Chairperson, the eThekwini Durban IPTN. While we have experienced some deadlocks in the past, in the last year or so, nearly a year, we really did find one another in terms of the plan going forward. Chair, the challenges there are known to the committee, and as we have been reporting, Chair, the major issue around impasse was the market share between the taxis and the buses. And obviously, just to recap, it was the insistence on eThekwini for a 70-30 split, which was not informed by surveys. Now, they have come back to the table, the two parties, in that they have agreed and found one another. Now, what we are having now is infrastructure that is, of course, yes, not used there. We all really would want, as the honorable member is saying, that they need to go very swiftly into operations. But the sticky point and what they are grappling with and what they are busy resolving is roping in the taxi industry to operate with buses on C3, which is pretty much finished. But say, across the cities that we were supporting, I think it is also just fair for us to say, as the national department, we've been insisting that we need to move from a heavy infrastructure into operations, because at the end of it all, the people would want to see buses moving on the new system, on the IPTN, on the network. That has been slow and coming, and probably is one of the reasons, we can say it here, that it's one of the reasons that led to those that are in control of our finances, to say this PTNG is not performing. Because we don't see buses. We've invested 80 billion, but we don't see the people benefiting. And that is why they say we must wind down the PTNG. We then indicated as the Department of Transport that we cannot necessarily wind it down like Big Bang cut off without firstly honoring the obligations that are there on the ground. So those that are finishing particular phases will be allowed to. But all of us want to move into operations as soon as possible, including eThekwini. So the surveys were done, and then the results are there, and then it's for them, not us, for them as eThekwini, to then form a credible vehicle operating company, VOC, which will be informed by the surveys. And everybody, I'm sure, will then be happy. But we are working on an alternative public transport plan for the country in the midst of this PTNG being discontinued. It is not the end of us as government supporting public transport, but we are resetting and then having to deal with a new approach. And just as it claims, the new approach will be focused primarily on vehicles or buses, more than focusing on infrastructure, which is where we've all been grappling since 2010, and they're still stuck in infrastructure improvement. We want everybody now to get buses, buy buses, and operate as soon as possible, because that's where the impact will be felt. The regulations of e-hailing are in place. We have gazetted them, and then we are at what we call implementation stage. Now, before the e-hailing provisions, which came with the Amendment Act, before, the provinces were issuing e-hailers with shuttle services and meter taxis licenses, which was what was closest to e-hailing. Now we have the regulations. The task now is for provinces to convert those operating licenses into e-hailing specific licenses. So that is what is happening. At the national, we approved the app, the e-hailing app, and then once approved, the priests at the provinces need to convert the old operating licenses that they've been issuing the past 5, 7, 8 years into e-hailing services, while also considering new applications for e-hailing. Now, the taxi people have always been saying that there is just some helicopter hovering. I don't know what that is close to me. Apologies for that. Now, the taxi operators have always been saying e-hailing is not regulated in the country. Now it is regulated. And I want to believe that all parties should now learn to coexist in the system. Because there's different markets for everybody. Not necessarily that e-hailing are taking their passengers, but our main target here is the user, and the user should have a choice of a mode. Mokonyama must be allowed to choose whether he uses rail, bus, taxi, or sedan e-hailing services. One of the features in the regulations is to make sure that the e-hailers are distinguishable. So we are insisting on the distinguishing marks so that they are not targeted. Although themselves they are complaining that marking their vehicles will make them targets, but that is for our own law enforcement purposes and also for their own safety, so that not ordinary South Africans will be misconstrued as providing e-hailing services without the necessary and the requisite papers. So you won't be attacked for transporting a family, for an example, because e-hailers will have a distinguishing mark. We are not saying permanent marks because some of those vehicles are not 100% on e-hailing services. But what the meter taxis are using, they use a yellow sign that they put on the roof of the vehicle saying taxi. So we are insisting on that kind of identification for the e-hailers, and we hope that that will reduce the tensions and the conflicts. The issue of using debit order is a preferred method of payment, and I think almost all South Africans are now preferring paperless transactions. So it is also high time, and work is happening with our support again, for the taxis to also embrace paperless transaction with the introduction of automated fare collection system. That will not be, they will not be forced to have cash on hand, but use other methods, ticketless or cashless systems. Contractor development. Chair, when we transfer money to SANRAL and they give us the plans and the performance agreement of the shareholders compact, they then commit to contractor development. And I must indicate that SANRAL has got a wonderful contractor development for the same reasons that Honorable Pounder is mentioning, that they also are able to stand on their own. So there is an incubation program at SANRAL at least, but also a majority of the provinces have got such contractor development programs. And they submit those with the request they do on the B form for the projects that they are going to do, and we give money for. So as we adjudicate or we look and analyze the project list, we look into those final details in terms of how it is going to benefit, firstly, the local people, but also the targeted groups as enshrined in our legislation. We can also then provide the details of those initiatives and whether they have yielded results. Now, how do you ensure that people are not overcharged, more especially, say, a rand per kilometer? We do have standards in terms of how they need to, what type of material they need to use, and how much, as a guideline, they need to be charged, or the cost. If you look at our bidding forms and the form for filling in the bill of quantities, they are itemized, and it's very easy to spot if somebody is selling you 50 kilograms of bitumen at an exorbitant price. And those are the issues that they need to be vigilant of. The pity thing is that where we are seated, we don't procure those services. The Act does not allow us, and the PFMA, the accounting officers do control the bidding process, as well as the including the specifications. But at national, we issue guidelines and standards in terms of TRH standard forms, and that we publish from time to time. The SANRAL concessions, Chair, as part of this contractor development is that that these people should not be small contractors forever, and they graduate towards higher levels, of course, including the work they do and the CDIP ratings by CDIP, so that as they grow higher, they are able to compete for big and large contracts, including some of these concessions. But where there is not enough capacity in terms of responding to the concessions, there and inevitably are still going to be your bigger players. There are some of the concessions that are maturing. the track N4 concession from Gauteng to Maputo is maturing early next year, I think it's February. And efforts are now being made to ensure that the next concessionaire involve local people, as much local people as possible, Chairperson. But the eating, whatever of the pudding is in the eating, it also depends on the capacity to deal with that. We don't want to, when a concession ends, we're now subjected to poor quality work later on, and then there is deterioration again. That is the one that comes to mind, Honorable Kaunda, that is maturing soon. The others are still going to go through NTC, N3 concession, and the Bakwena concession on the N4 going west of Gauteng. But we can provide a list, and this is a central responsibility. We can get it from central, a list of the concessions that we have, major concessions, and when are they maturing. There was a question whether this is a new question, these are new questions or old questions. It was not clear which questions were the honorable member referring to. But we can say that every time we meet with the committees like this committee, there will always be questions that are repeated, mainly because of the observations of the members on the ground. So there's a combination of new questions and old questions. And where a question is old, we try to move in answering the question as a form of an update, rather than it being a new questions. The APP, okay. Firstly, the strat plan will be 5 years, and in the years will indicate how we are intervening in particular years for the entirety of the 5 years. So there are those APP targets that would look like the same. It's because the work that they are doing, they are responding to, are homogeneous. It depends on the quantum that is being placed and the trajectory that it is traversing through the entire system leading up to the 5 years. As an example, legislation, we might be this year focusing on legislation, preparing it and taking it through public consultations and to cabinet. And then the next year, we then monitor and run and work with Parliament as they process the legislation, firstly at the PCOT, but then if it is a 76 bill, it comes to the NCOP, and we provide support going to the provinces, hoping that it will then be approved. And we target at the same time developing regulations, just in case when the bill is ascended into act, we are able to then implement immediately. And the subsequent years will be focused on implementation. And that is how incrementally we deal with the APP targets. So they're not necessarily a repetition, Honorable Member, but they're basically incremental or cumulative, leading up to the overall objective in the strategic plan for the 5 years. Chair, I think the committee will have an opportunity to engage with RAF at some stage, and they will have to deal with the matters of how they're dealing with the backlogs. But I think in the recent months, we can safely say, and proudly so, indicate that we have seen an improvement in the payments of claims at the Road Accident Fund. I think in the first 3 months of the new board, they have disbursed almost 16 billion rand. Unfortunately, this is also a factor of whether RAF is liquid enough to can process all the claims? And the answer is obviously no. Well, each year you have a shortfall of around 20 billion. And it's because of what they receive in the form of the fuel levy, Chair. But we can also mention the issues, geopolitical issues, Chair. What is happening in the Middle East is also affecting South Africa. So if the petrol and the diesel prices at the pump goes higher, the pinch is also felt by South Africa and the South Africans. And that is why we are having in April and now coming May, we are still going to have a reduction in the fuel levy of 3 rand. And that affects the inflows into the likes of road accident fund, who depend entirely on the fuel levy and nothing else. So if there is little money coming in, it means there'll be less claims that are being attended to. We are changing the legislation. We'll inform the committee of the full details while legislation is en route to Parliament. We're introducing reforms, caps, and other related issues onto the Road Accident Fund Acts in the form of the Road Accident Benefit Scheme. Not in the old fashion that we're doing it, but we've also been instructed to look at blended funding because dependence on the fuel is just going to catch up with us in the future, more especially as the country decarbonizes and more people start to use electric vehicles. It means fuel usage, fossil fuel usage will also decrease. And that will have an effect on those entities that depend entirely on fuel, of which the Road Accident Fund is one of them. But the Road Accident Fund related to road safety, that is a very good observation, Chairperson. If we were all observing the rules of the road, we wouldn't have accidents. And there wouldn't be a need for people to claim a ramp. So our efforts should be very biased towards road safety initiatives, because that will save lives and that will ensure that people don't get injured. And that will mean less accidents. And therefore that will mean a less burden on the Road Accident Fund. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, DG. I'm going to take the questions of Honorable Keza. And Honorable Keza, if you'll allow me, I'm going to ask 1 or 2 questions after you. So let's start with you, Honorable Keza. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Chair. I will allow you by all means, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. Chair, I just want to check the plans of the department, whether in this APP entail the monitoring and evaluation teams for value for money in terms of the rural paving of roads to create jobs and curb underdevelopment of rural areas and ensure that there is a crisis resolution while sustainable ways in which the roads in rural areas are designed can be meaningful in terms of sustainability and quality of the roads there. I'm saying that because if you take, for instance, the road that goes to Emelo and off ramps to Mkondo, that Mkondo local municipality, which is Piet Retief, that road has been riddled with potholes. But if you have plans, the APP, and then if you have money that you allocate to provinces and district municipalities and roads that are are in district municipalities, you will find contradictions in terms of the design stage, the resource implementation stage, and the implementation stage. You will find the delays that are often political at a district level, and you'll find designs that span from 2020, 2016. The road has been stuck in design. Yet you have monies that are allocated in these provinces by national department. What is it in this plan of the department that ensures value for money in terms of the sustainability of the roads infrastructure to ensure that the transport that goes into those roads actually, because at a provincial level, it's the whole department of roads transport and so on. So what is monitoring there? What monitoring implements are they using to ensure value for money? The second issue, Chair, is the issue of handovers of the issue of transport that is not handovers, transport that is heavy on those roads. What are the plans to move the transport that is the transport that is heavy on roads and that is not designed for that amount of weight, and as a result, it results in potholes. What is the plan of moving that transport back to the trains, to the corridors? You see, and the last one, Chair, pertains to of course, the PRASA, the plans for the department to finally complete the implementation of Mloto Corridor. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Muteza. I will just, if I may, pose my questions as well at this stage. DG, from my side, I think first of all, just a general observation from my side, and you are welcome to correct me if I'm wrong. But across all the programs, the 226-27 APP leans very heavily, in my opinion, towards process indicators. So there's lots of speaking of plans developed, policies submitted, and strategies drafted, instead of measurable service delivery outcomes. So I'll give you an example. The rail, the aviation, and maritime focus on bills, on strategies, and on submissions, rather than throughput or performance improvements. So I think the previous APP, the previous year's APP, there was an attempt there to link planning to delivery. But the current APP reverts to process indicators a lot, like strategies and plans and submissions. So maybe you can help me and define my observation by giving us a few examples of programs where there were measurable service delivery outcomes that have improved year on year between the last APP and this APP. And then on governance oversight, I think the governance oversight program, I think it's program 8, focuses on a number of reports that were analyzed there. I think there was 56 reports, but I don't see any linkages to improved entity performance outcomes. So, analyzing 56 reports doesn't fix entities. So what measurable improvements has there been in PRASA and Transnet and aviation entities that will result from this oversight exercise that was done? And why are those not reflected as performance indicators in the APP? And then on I think SAA, and I want to concentrate a little bit on SAA if I may. I don't see any explicit lessons learned from failed entities like SAA. And we have to address the elephant in the room here and call SAA a failed entity because billions of rands have been spent over many years and many bailouts with no accountability. So, I wonder what specific safeguards in the APP ensure that PRASA, Transnet, and our aviation entities do not follow the same path as SAA. And speaking of SAA, more recently, and I've mentioned now, over 30 years, SAA has cost the South African taxpayer in excess of about 60 billion rand. And I'm not sure that the department can show a measurable return to the taxpayer from that money spent into SAA over the last 30 years. The Auditor General has recently also raised concerns that SAA may not meet the requirements of a going concern. But now we're seeing that there's some sort of proportional issuance of new shares, and those shares are being issued to the sole shareholder, which is the state, which is the South African taxpayer, for 1 billion rand. So my question would be, how does the department justify this transaction as anything other than another taxpayer-funded bailout, particularly in light of the Minister of Finance's clear position that no further bailouts will take place with regards to SA? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, honorable members, for the questions yet again. Chair, the questions are as follows. The monitoring and evaluation of the grants vis-a-vis what is being seen on the ground. Chair, we in the way we manage the PRMG, one, we receive the project plan or projects from the provinces. We analyze them with the provinces on what we call the B form. And then once we agree, we then make an allocation. That happens around July, August of each year for the next financial year. And then the money gets dispensed in tranches to provinces. And then what we do ourselves, we then have monitoring teams. This is also partly outsourced so that we rope in experts who are engineers in themselves and technical people to go and monitor the projects on the ground to ensure that there is value for money. Now, that is different from the other processes. For example, the procurement processes. We don't go and dictate to the province who they must appoint. That is not, I think, even in the spirit of 217, Section 217, we will be found wanting and serious overreach if we can do that. But we also not infuse our staff with the staff of the provinces, because once again, they would come and say, but your person was here and he agreed to this. So the best we do is then to evaluate and assess value for money issues and raise those concerns, Chair. We in the last year, we did stop 1 or 2 projects. Notably, it was not in roads. The money that was stopped was in public transport. And that forced the province to come to the table and have a discussion so that we are able to release those money. So the levers we have really on grants is to write back to provinces to say improve on this. And if they don't we then say to them, we will suspend the grant. And then if again that does not persuade them, we suspend. But if still there is no movement, then we withhold. So the taxpayers' money is not abused. I heard the word taxpayers' money from some of the members, even the chairperson. And so the taxpayers' money is not misused. Now, you need to do that very carefully because you might be saying you are punishing the province. But unfortunately, at the end, it is those that are supposed to receive the service that is also affected. Chair, we all had serious difficulties when we stopped money for eThekwini because then I think at the level of some of the committees in Parliament, we were then alerted that, but we are not punishing the municipality, we are punishing the people. So that those are the difficult things that you, as a transferring department, we encounter. But there aren't any other levers because if the conditions of the grant are not being met, we have no option but to stop the grant and do a research. But we also don't abandon them. We go sit them and still guide them on how they need to do the things. Now, Chair, I think the issue around political interference is way above my pay grade. But I can allude to the fact that projects are delayed for various reasons. Interference is one of them. If it is not well conceptualized and designed and does not accommodate the locals, you then have the locals stopping the project. But that is within our control. We make sure that those things are done. And then the next level, which is the most difficult one, is extortion by the so-called construction mafias. So we also feel the brunt of having to deal with construction mafias. And that is an issue of law enforcement because then it gravitates towards criminality. So those are the things that we do and have. But on designs and planning, we are very much involved and we insist on the standards that are not only published by us, but are promulgated. So they become sort of regulations. And why don't you move heavy traffic from road to rail? I think pretty much that has been the stance of the department for years now. That there is cargo that is rail friendly and it should go to rail and not on the roads. The unfortunate part for all of us is that you then find the rail infrastructure not up to the standard that is supposed to be. So you find the rail not performing in terms of infrastructure, but also in terms of ops or rail weapons. So it's becoming very difficult to then move rail into, rail-friendly cargo into rail. But it's something that we are now working on. The reforms within rail, targeting particularly Transnet, is aimed at identifying core corridors and making sure that those corridors are revitalized, refurbished, and therefore they can move rail. More especially leading, just as an example, from Mpumalanga, leading up to the ports of Richards Bay. So we have done the RFPs, we're now into RFQs, and then we will be allowing private operators to come and operate on some of these lines. That would assist a great deal in taking some of the cargo from the roads. And unfortunately, Pondo, Ermelo, and those areas are affected by this heavy trucks because the suppliers wants to move coal into the ports of Richards Bay. Those are the challenges that we are having. But we have not abandoned that position of having to make sure rail is capable of carrying the cargo. Currently, it is not. And that's the work we're working in, we're working with. And now that rail also reports to the Department of Transport. So we are moving with enough speed to ensure that there are multiple players, not only Transnet, into the rail space. Chair, Moloto Corridor, maybe I should just indicate to the community that Moloto Corridor as a rail system has not gained much traction. But what we have done over the years has been to improve the Moloto road on the roadside by ensuring that that road one is safe to traverse. We have finished the parts of Limpopo and Mpumalanga. Gauteng was the slowest to respond to transferring that portion to Sanral, for Sanral to upgrade it. And now we have an agreement with Gauteng. They have agreed, and that's why you are now seeing some movement in terms of widening that road on the Gauteng side. But before I get out of this one's on roads, the other thing is to just design the roads to be able to cater for the appropriate loads and the speed that they need to be traversed, whereas we are busy fixing the issue of rail. So Moloto Corridor, great work happening on the roadside. The issues of the rail still hamstrung by the availability of funding to do a proper feasibility. We did pre-feasibilities, and then we need to do a proper feasibility, and we need in the upwards of R1 billion to be able to finally deal with that matter. But we're focusing more on the roadside at the moment. Chairperson, the targets are process related, not service delivery oriented. You are true, Chair. But this is the work that we have been doing in the recent past to try and make sure that our targets are smart. And this is the area that denied us a clean audit for some 5 or so years now. But because when we were being questioned on the reported achievement, when we claimed to have traveled 3,000 kilometers of road, for an example, we then produce what is being developed, done by the provinces. And the auditors, always been saying to us, this is not your target because you are not doing it yourself. Otherwise, if you take ownership of this target, you need to go make sure that that happens on the ground and you are able to be the primary source of the evidence that is produced. Now, Chair, unfortunately, again, on the advice of both AGSA and DPME, we were told to focus on what we do and do best and are in control of. Because you would be doing injustice to A in the SMART principle, which is achievability. That is not achieved by you. For example, if you take ownership of the roads in Ermelo, as the Honorable Member has indicated, and that road gets delayed or deteriorates, we need to account for that, and we find that it is probably the local dynamics, the provincial dynamics that delays the project and we are not privy thereof. So, Chair, you are very right. Where we have, and we have proved it with legislation, and we have proved it with policies, and we have proved it with policies, and we have proved it with guidelines and minimum requirements. That is where we are in control 100% of the project. It looks like it's a paper, but if we churn out legislation that talks to road safety measures, the impact is whether road safety is being realized downstream. It may not necessarily be immediate, but we have been pretty much criticized and even qualified for having to take the targets and indicators that we do not have total control thereof. And that is why you see our targets being the way we are. They said confront what you do and not what you don't do, because the information when it comes to it is secondary information. And when they put it to test in terms of verifiability, it becomes a huge and a big challenge. It does not mean that we do not account for the sector, Chairperson. I think in our APP, if the members have got the purpose of the APP, we've got towards the end what we call transversal indicators. And those are reportable. They are not necessarily targets that need to be achieved by us, but we report on what the provinces are going to do for the sector. So for the purpose of the presentation, those we did not put because if we are held against them in terms of performance, then again, we will be found wanting. But we do express ourselves on what we call transversal indicators, which we have developed together with DPME, as well as the provinces. Chair, and this goes for what we do in entity oversight. I think it just says there at 56 reports. And I think this question comes twice in the space of a week. We were also then criticized about it. Chair, behind that small sentence, it is loaded with analysis, evaluation, and feedback. So we don't only receive the report and say this is the report, but we then follow up through a letter from the minister to the chairperson in all 56 instances, because these are quarterly targets for all the entities. As to you have achieved 30% of your targets, tell me how you are going to deal with the 70%. But also tell me how this should not be held against you. And also indicate where we can assist as a department. So there's a lot of analysis and feedback mechanism that happens on this reporting by the entities. But you would know that program, Chair, is also responsible for making sure that the governance issues are in place. There are boards, there are chief executives, which requires our involvement that are in place. Chair, it may well be that we have those good intentions and we always make sure that we appoint the correct people to the boards and probably at the level of the executives where the enabling legislation allows us to. What we may not be in control of is therefore what they do on a daily basis, running the affairs of the entity. Because again, we can't take that over. It will be an overreach, serious overreach. You create a company, you appoint a board of directors, and you allow them to run the entity, and they report to you. Now, under normal circumstances, we would meet them at AGMs, which is once per year. But we have now insisted on a reporting format that calls for them to report quarterly or as and when, and not or, and as and when we require them. So in the 4 quarters is a compliance issue, strictly compliance legislated. But again, in between, where there are interventions needed, we do engage with the entities to ensure that there is no mandate drift. They're not drifting away from the mandate. We would have agreed with them. Specifically on the SAA chairperson, how I wish that sooner or later the committee can also call SAA, because the principle is the same. We appoint the board, we have a say in the appointment of the group CEO, and then the rest is left the board to deal with. How I wish that they can come, because they have got a responsibility in terms of the PFMA to account to Parliament, so that they tell you exactly what is it that they are doing to make sure that the company is kept afloat and does not go under after a successful business rescue process. We are hopeful that we will still be able to arrest the situation before it gets worse. Chair, it is normal that the AG, ongoing concern, they will express an opinion, and then based on the asset base and the liabilities that you have, they will then indicate whether it is concerning or it is okay. In the majority of the 3 Cs and the 3 As entities that receive funding from the fiscus, that is not necessarily a concern, because then AG would indicate that although this is concerning, but I am aware that you are receiving money from the state. So for as long as that state, that is okay. But the likes of SAA that should generate their own revenue, it becomes concerning. And that should be the first item on the post-audit action plan that needs to be addressed. We are told that, not we are told, as a department, we have requested SAA to come up with a turnaround, urgently prepared turnaround plan, so that it does not suffer the same fate as the years before, Chairperson. And we are monitoring the situation. And if needs be, we will come and report regularly to ourselves on the affairs of SAA. But yeah, we did inherit an entity that was still struggling to get out of BRP. And we made a few reforms there. And so is Transnet. I think at Transnet also, we assisted them with the budget facilities of infrastructure. And now they are on the way to recovery in terms of the lines that they are recovering. But SAA won't be the case. It would need definitely to be assisted going forward. But their plan will also tell us if on their own they are able to arrest the situation or they will need assistance. But we are on top of that, Chairperson. We monitor that movements quite regularly. I think I've done some justice, but I think the boards of these entities, Chair, should also come on their own and give you the specifics, the details of what they are doing to make sure that the taxpayers' money is not abused or there is value in the investments that we all make. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, DG. Honourable members, at the risk of running into overtime here, I'm happy to open up the floor if anyone has a specific follow-up question that they felt were not answered completely by the administration. So anybody has a question based on the question they've already asked for clarification, if you can just put up your hand and we'll take those questions. If there are none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Show of hands. Honorable Peter, your hand is up, and Honorable Keza's hands are up, but I think it might be legacy hands because your hands have been up the whole time.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, it's a legacy hand. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Thank you, no problem. Is there anybody who would like to do a follow-up? No? Good. Thank you very much, honorable members. Let me then once again apologize to all of you if my camera is not on, but I fear that my internet might still be unstable. So let me just thank the department for presenting the APP and their budget to us today. DG, you can be assured we've taken note of what you said, and unfortunately in the NCOP, as you know, we cluster and we share committee members between different clusters. So it's really difficult to concentrate on one entity. Therefore, we have to make use of the time that we have with the department to ask specific questions about entities, because our program just simply doesn't allow us to engage as our colleagues in the portfolio committee, for example, on transport can engage. But let me appreciate the fact that you were here today, and we thank you and your department, and we will continue to do our oversight as best we can. You are welcome to take your leave now, DG. I will now continue with the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of an adoption of minutes of our previous meetings. Unless you want to say goodbye. Yes.
Chair, thank you very much. Thanks for the engagement. Chairperson, based on your summary, we shall make sure that we, where possible, come with them when we come to report. And probably if we can be assisted on the focus areas, we'll bring the relevant people with us. Thank you very much.
Much appreciated, DG. Thank you for that undertaking. We take note of that. Thank you very much. And goodbye to you and the department. We appreciate you. Honourable members, let us look at the draft minutes of the meeting on the 24th of March. These minutes were circulated to you early this morning by the committee secretariat, so you've all had a chance to peruse them. Let us go through the minutes. Mr. Ntalini, I think just concentrate on the attendance, make sure that we are all happy that the attendance is correct. Honourable members, I'll take, if you see something that you're not in agreement with, just raise your hands. Let us go down. Thank you. Opening, apologies, the proceedings of the meeting. Various inputs, thank you. The deliberations by the committee. And the adoption of the minutes was held on the 11th of March. The meeting adjourned at 12:30. Can I get a mover for the adoption of these minutes, please? Thank you, Honourable Skeerkogel. May I have a seconder, please?
I second, Chair.
Seconded by Honourable Mabebu. Thank you very much. Mr. Ntalini, do we have any other minutes?
No, Chairperson.
Good. Thank you very much. Honourable members, thank you very much for your engagement in this meeting today. Just by way of reminder, our next meeting for this committee will be from 9:30 until 10 o'clock on Tuesday, the 5th of May. And that'll just be for the consideration and adoption of the PARR, the Policy Assessment and Recommendations Report for the Department of Transport. And then another reminder to please diarise Thursday, the 7th of May, 2 o'clock. for the briefing by the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure on their APP and their budget. With that, thank you very much for your participation today. Thank you very much for the committee secretariat and for our content advisor for all the hard work they do behind the scenes. And with that, I'd like to wish you a pleasant afternoon in the House on a hybrid session where we will be debating Freedom Day and Workers' Day. And have a good lunch. Thank you very much. The meeting is now adjourned.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks.
Sure.